Hello everyone, this is Suprej Venkat. Welcome to Chapter 1, where we're going to cover the basics of an adventure motorcycle. That's going to include basic things like how do you actually get on a motorcycle, how do you start, what are the riding modes, how does the brakes work on a BMW GS, and also, we look at how to put a center stand on such a big bike, even if you're not very strong. Let's get started. In a large motorcycle like this, where you have your panniers and top box, getting on can be a little bit of a challenge. But the way that I find is the easiest is, just keep your left hand gently on the left handlebar, keep the left foot on the pegs. Right hand on the right handlebar, squeeze the brakes gently, lift the legs over and stand on the other side of the peg. So, now nice and comfortably standing, gently sit down, put your left feet down, your right feet down, so the bike comes off the stand and you've got the stands off and you're ready to switch on the ignition and go. So first thing is make sure your keys secure. A number of times that we've gone on group rides and some people have lost their keys. It's not a very pleasant experience. So you've got one place here where you can actually keep the key. Otherwise, if you have a waterproof jacket, make sure you put it in there. And then starting is pretty straightforward. If you've got a keyless system, you just press this button once and you could hear the electronics coming along, and then you just check for any warning lights. You could see there's a warning light in here, so that one there is saying that I have low tire pressure. That's just because my sensor's gone, but otherwise it's good to go. And that's it, front brake on, and just fire the engine away. Next we're going to speak about the riding modes. So let me explain a little bit about what the core riding modes are and what they actually do. So in essence, there are three main things that they control. Number one is the throttle response. When you squeeze the throttle, how aggressive is the response? Number two is your traction control, how much wheel slip is actually allowed. And number three is ABS. What's the modulation threshold for each of the modes? So that's the three things that are controlled. And if you have the top end models, you'll have 5 ride modes, which are the road, dynamic, rain, enduro, and enduro pro. Let me quickly explain what each of them do. The first is the road mode. Now this is the everyday use mode, where the throttle is decently responsive and your ABS is best suited. So for most everyday riding, city riding, I usually leave it on road mode. The second is the dynamic mode. Here the throttle response is much more higher. So I usually use this mode either if I'm doing track days or if I'm doing some twisties and I want a bit more of throttle response and I feel a bit aggressive. That's when I use the dynamic mode. The third mode is the enduro mode. So when you see soil, sand, slush, any of that, this is the mode you have to be in. You can't really ride on the sand or dirt in the road mode, because what happens is in the sand you need a little bit of loose traction. You need the wheels to spin a little bit more. So, and the throttle response is smoother. So that you could actually ride aggressively or even normally on the sand. So when you see sand or any loose surface, enduro mode is the one to be in. If you want to do things like drifts and power slides, Enduro Pro is the mode on. In Enduro Pro, the rear brake is actually the ABS is disabled, so you have full control. You could skid the bike around. So this is for the pros who want to throw the bike around in the dirt and the sand. So one key aspect to remember is the modes change only if the engine is either off and the ignition is on, just like in this current mode, or when you're riding, you need to pull in the clutch. So you might notice sometimes when you're riding, you're trying to change the mode, it's not changing. That's because the engine needs to cut off for the split second. Not the engine needs to cut off, but the clutch needs to be pulled in for a split second. So just keep that in mind. One very interesting aspect of the BMW GS is the front lever actually operates both the front brakes and the rear brakes. So that's a fantastic system because when you're riding wherever, you just need to use the front lever. The rear lever is to control only the rear brake. When you press the front lever, it automatically modulates brake pressure to both the front and the back, and it's not equally done. So depending on the riding mode, it sends either 70% brake to the front, 30 to the rear, or 80 to the front and 20 to the rear. So the braking, as far as the braking is concerned, you have nothing to worry about. As far as the BMW GS is concerned, just use the front lever in all kinds of terrains and you'll be good. The final thing that we're going to look into chapter 1, which is the basics, is how to actually put the center stand on such a big bike. So the first thing I usually do is I straighten out the handlebar. And once it's straight, I have my left hand on the left side of the handlebar. I have the right hand on the rear rail, and I just center the bike, right? So the first thing is you just center the bike, adjust the steering so it's nice and center. Then don't just press down, but just push your leg down until you actually touch both sides of the center stand touch the ground, and make sure it's actually balanced. So what I mean by balance is, see, even if I take my hands off, the bike is still stationary. So that kind of tells you that the center of the bike is nicely balanced. At this position, then using your right thigh, just stand on the bike, and that's it. It'll fall. So when people usually struggle is when the bike is off balance, when they try to do it too fast, right? So the key is center the bike, make sure it's nicely aligned and balanced. The stand is touching on both sides, then just put a little bit of pressure and it'll just fall nice into place. So hope you found the basics of, or rather introduction chapter useful. In the next chapter, we're going to go on to balancing the bike, how such a big bike can be managed easily without a lot of force, and how we'd use the weight towards our advantage. See you in the next chapter.